The night she received the warning, the wind was low and slow. The village was quiet. Fires were dying. Dogs were asleep. She was alone near the old path, carrying nothing but her tired thoughts. That was when the old woman appeared. No footsteps, no greeting. Just a thin figure standing where there was nothing before. Her back was bent. Her eyes were clear. Her voice was calm. She held out a small object, a plain clay whistle. No carvings, no shine. Just clay and a small hole. The old woman placed it in the young woman's palm and closed her fingers around it. She said, "This whistle will protect you." Then she leaned closer and spoke slowly. "Never speak about it." The woman felt cold. The old woman repeated it. "Never speak about it." Her voice did not rise. It did not shake. It sounded like stone. The woman nodded, confused, afraid, but listening. The old woman said the sentence again, the same way, the same words. "Never speak about it." The night seemed to hold its breath. The woman asked nothing. The old woman gave no reasons. She only pointed at the whistle and said, "Keep it close. Never speak about it." The wind touched the trees. Somewhere far away, an owl cried. The woman felt the rule press into her chest. She understood it was not a suggestion. It was not advice. It was law. Never speak about it. The old woman stepped back. Her shadow stretched long and thin. She looked once more at the woman's face, as if measuring her silence. Then the firelight flickered. The wind passed again. And the old woman was gone. No footsteps, no path disturbed. Only the whistle in the woman's hand, and the words echoing in her ears. Never speak about it. After that night, life did not change, not on the surface. The woman returned to the village. She worked. She fetched water. She swept yards. She greeted people who barely looked at her. Men passed her without stopping. Women whispered and turned away. Children laughed and ran ahead of her, as if she carried something wrong. She was known but not chosen, seen but never desired. She was not ugly. She was not loud. She was simply unwanted. When festivals came, other women were invited to dance. She stood at the edge, clapping softly. When marriages were announced, her name was never spoken. Mothers warned their sons away from her. No reason was ever given. Just silence, just shaking heads. She went home alone every night. Her heart wanted one thing, true love. Not gifts, not status. Just a man who would sit with her and stay. She dreamed of a simple life, cooking for two, laughing in the evening, being chosen in daylight, not in secret. But daylight never chose her. Days passed, seasons turned. Her bed stayed empty. At night, she held the small clay whistle in her hand. She never used it. She never showed it. She remembered the old woman's voice. Never speak about it. She repeated the words in her mind. Never speak about it. The rule became part of her breathing. Even when she cried silently. Even when she wished someone would notice her pain, she said nothing. Men looked through her. When one did look, it was brief, curious, then gone. The village decided she was nothing special. Someone to pass, someone to ignore. Her name became light, easy to forget. Each rejection pressed deeper. Each lonely night grew longer. Still she waited. Still she hoped. And always, the whistle stayed hidden. And always, the rule stayed firm. Never speak about it. Time revealed a strange truth. It did not come suddenly. It came slowly, like water soaking into dry ground. The first time, it felt like chance. A man spoke to her longer than usual. He sat beside her at the market. He smiled. He listened. He held her hand briefly. That week, his life changed. His crops grew taller. His debts were suddenly paid. People praised his luck. They said the ancestors favored him. She gained nothing, no gifts, no promises. He left smiling, fuller than before. She went home alone again. It happened again, and again. Any man who came close to her, even briefly walked away, improved. Their business grew. Their health returned. Their names rose in the village. People pointed and said, "Look how he is blessed." No one pointed at her. No one thanked her. She stayed the same, tired, quiet, empty-handed. She did not understand why. She only noticed the pattern. She gave attention. She gave time. She gave her body sometimes, hoping it would turn into love. But love never came. Only benefit for them. Only loss for her. Each time a man left, his steps were lighter. Each time she remained, her shoulders bent lower. At night, she would touch the clay whistle and feel its cool surface. She remembered the warning, "Never speak about it." She wondered if the whistle was the reason. She wondered if silence was the price. But she did not test it. She did not break the rule. Never speak about it. The words guarded her mouth like a lock. Soon men noticed something else. Being with her brought gain. No one said it aloud. No one asked her. They simply came, quietly, took what they wanted, left quickly. She became a path people used to reach better lives. The secret lived between her ribs, heavy, unspeakable. She carried it alone. The whistle stayed hidden. The rule stayed alive. Never speak about it. The first man who promised love came fast. His name was known. His smile was wide. He found her one morning and spoke boldly. He said he had watched her for a long time. He said she was different. He said he wanted her as his woman. The village watched. Women whispered. Men laughed softly. No one believed him, but she did. He brought her food. He sat with her in public. He held her hand where everyone could see. Her heart opened quickly. She believed the waiting was over. That night, he slept beside her. He said kind words. He said forever. She said nothing about the whistle. She remembered the rule. Never speak about it. His life changed within days. His goats multiplied. His name was praised. Elders nodded when he spoke. People said he had become a man of favor. He smiled bigger. He walked taller. She stayed the same. No gifts came her way. No protection. No commitment. Then the betrayal came. Clear. Loud. Public. At the market, he laughed with another woman. He pushed her aside when she approached. He said he never promised her anything. People watched. People laughed. Someone said she had imagined it all. He denied her in daylight. He left the village soon after, richer and respected. He did not look back. She stood alone in the dust. Shame burned her face. Whispers followed her steps. That night, she cried without sound. She held the whistle tightly. The rule echoed again. Never speak about it. The village learned the pattern. Men learned faster. The second man did not come with patience. He came with hunger. He had watched the first one leave richer. He had listened to the whispers. He approached her openly, without shame. He said he did not care about rumors. He said he wanted her. He said he would not leave like the others. The village watched again. Some laughed, some waited. She was tired. She wanted to believe. She accepted him quickly. He stayed with her in daylight. He slept beside her at night. He told people she was his woman. Her heart softened again, even though it was already bruised. She did not speak of the whistle. She kept her silence. His rise was faster than the first man's. Money came. Opportunities came. His enemies fell silent. People suddenly respected him. Elders invited him to sit closer. Women looked at him with interest. He began to dress better. He began to look past her. The betrayal was harsher. It was planned. One morning he stood in the center of the village and announced his engagement to another woman. Laughter followed. Shock followed. Someone asked about her. He smiled and said she was nothing to him. He said she was a mistake. The crowd turned to look at her. She stood there as people stared. Some pointed. Some shook their heads. The new woman laughed loudly. Shame covered her like dust. The second man walked away, praised, celebrated, lifted by the same mouths that mocked her. That night she did not cry loudly. She did not scream. She sat on the floor and stared at her hands. The village now understood. Being close to her brought gain. Loving her brought nothing. Men learned the lesson, and they came with worse intentions. The whistle stayed hidden. The silence stayed heavy. Her hope grew thin. The third man was different, but not by much. His approach was subtler. He didn't offer grand promises or loud declarations. He watched her quietly for months, his gaze following her as she worked, as she walked through the village. He waited until she was isolated, until her heart, cracked by the others, became even more fragile. He spoke to her gently, as if he had all the time in the world. He listened in a way that felt honest, even if it wasn't. This time she had learned. She held back her hope. She was cautious. Yet, she still wanted to believe. She let him in. Slowly. Too slowly. Maybe she was too careful, too afraid of the inevitable. But he seemed different. He stayed longer. He didn't promise anything he couldn't give. There was no rush, no excitement. They spent their days together, but without much change. His life did not seem to improve. She found herself holding the whistle again, as if it were a reminder. A strange comfort in its cool, weightless presence. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The longer they were together, the more distant he became. She began to notice how others watched him with admiration, as if something about him had changed. His face was more confident, his shoulders broader, his eyes sharper. He had gained something. But it wasn't from her. The betrayal was soft. He didn't leave her for another woman, at least not in a way that everyone could see. But one evening, she overheard a conversation. He was talking to a friend, boasting of how easy it had been to gain her trust, how her heart was an easy prize, and how he had learned everything he needed to know to move ahead in the world. She felt the weight of the words hit her like a physical blow. She realized then that he had been using her, not for love, but for whatever advantage he could take. She wasn't a woman he loved. She was just a stepping stone. The hurt wasn't in his betrayal. It was in how easily he'd played the game. She wasn't special to him, just a means to an end. That night, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She stood staring out the window, holding the whistle, realizing that it wasn't her that men were after. It was what she unknowingly gave them. Success, power, luck, and in return, she got nothing. But silence. The next day, he left. No apology, no explanation. Just a brief goodbye. She couldn't bring herself to hate him, because he was only following the pattern. But she knew she could never trust again. The whistle stayed hidden, a symbol of a truth she couldn't speak. After the third man left, the village no longer pretended. Men stopped hiding their intentions. They no longer spoke of love. They no longer promised marriage. They came directly, quietly, with clear eyes. They came because they wanted something, and they knew she was the path. At first, she refused. She closed her door. She avoided the paths. She kept her head down. But hunger is loud. Loneliness is louder. Nights stretched long. Hope felt foolish. One by one, she stopped saying no. Not because she wanted them, but because she was tired of fighting what everyone already believed she was. Men came briefly. They stayed little. They left quickly. Each one rose after. One gained land. One gained strength. One gained respect. The village watched it happen again and again. Women whispered openly now. Children repeated cruel words they did not understand. Her name became a joke, a warning, a tool. She walked through the market and felt eyes follow her. Not with desire, with calculation. Men spoke to her as if she were already owned, as if she had no right to refuse. When she passed, laughter followed. When she stopped, silence came heavy and sharp. She accepted it all with her head low. Shame lived on her skin. It showed in how she walked, in how she spoke softly, in how she never met anyone's eyes. She was no longer a woman waiting for love. She was a place people visited and forgot. At night, she washed herself slowly, as if trying to remove something that could not be scrubbed away. She sat alone in the dark. No tears came anymore. Just emptiness, just breath going in and out. She touched the whistle sometimes, not for comfort, but to remind herself she still existed. The village took from her again and again, and she gave, not from desire, from exhaustion, from being worn thin by years of being used and never chosen. She had reached the bottom, and everyone could see it. The change did not happen loudly. It began quietly, like a breath held too long, and finally released. One evening, as she sat alone, tired and hollow, she lifted the clay whistle to her lips for the first time. Not to show anyone, not to call anyone, just to feel something different. The sound that came out was soft, almost nothing, but the air around her shifted. By morning, the village noticed. People stopped when she passed. Heads turned. Whispers changed tone. Her skin looked brighter, her posture straighter, her eyes clearer. It was not beauty like paint or jewelry. It was presence. She filled space now, without trying, without asking. Men who once mocked her stood still when she walked by. Women fell silent. Children stopped laughing. Something about her demanded attention. The same path she had walked for years now felt different under her feet. People greeted her carefully. Respect replaced ridicule. Fear mixed with curiosity. Prosperity followed her steps. Food appeared at her door without request. Work came easily. Coins filled her hands. Her house changed. Better cloth, better tools, a better life. Still, she gave no explanation. She said nothing. She did not smile too much. She did not boast. She simply existed, and the village adjusted itself around her. Those who had used her before avoided her eyes. Some bowed their heads. Others tried to return, speaking softly, pretending the past had not happened. She did not chase them away. She did not invite them in. She stood above it all, untouchable. At night, she held the whistle with steady hands. She learned its power without words. She did not need to announce it. The transformation spoke for itself. The village no longer saw her as a tool. They saw her as something dangerous, something sacred, something they could not control. For the first time, she was not invisible. For the first time, she was feared. Power never arrives alone. It brings a shadow. As her life rose, fear followed close behind. The whistle began to feel heavier in her hands. Its silence pressed on her thoughts. The village watched her carefully now. Every step she took was measured. Every breath noticed. People no longer laughed, but they spoke behind closed doors. One night, after a long day of forced smiles and bowed heads, a man cornered her near her home. He was shaking. His voice was low. He begged her to tell him how she had changed her fate. He said he was desperate. He said he would give anything. She tried to walk past him. He grabbed her arm. Others appeared, faces from the dark, fearful, angry, hungry for answers. Her heart pounded. For the first time, the rule felt unbearable. The words burned inside her mouth. Just one sentence, she thought. Just one explanation. The whistle felt hot against her skin. Her lips parted. The moment she almost spoke, the punishment came. A sharp sound cracked the air. Not from the whistle, from the sky. The ground trembled. Her house collapsed behind her, as if pushed by unseen hands. Food spoiled instantly. Coins turned dull and useless. The people screamed and ran. The men who had surrounded her fell to the ground, clutching their heads in pain. Fear replaced greed, pure terror. She fell to her knees. Her body shook. She did not speak. She swallowed the words back into silence. The whistle cooled again. The shaking stopped. But the damage was done. By morning, her prosperity was gone. Her power remained, but twisted. People avoided her completely now. Not from desire, not from curiosity, from fear of sharing her fate. The village finally understood. What lifted her could destroy them, and silence was the only thing holding the balance. She paid the price without saying a word. When everything fell apart, one man returned quietly. No drums, no whispers, no fear in his eyes. He came at sunset, walking the same old path she had walked for years. He was thinner now, older. His clothes were simple. His hands were empty. He was the man who had loved her before any of it began, before the whistle, before the rise, before the fall. Back when she had nothing to offer anyone, back when she was invisible. He had spoken to her kindly then. He had wanted to marry her. The village had laughed at him. They said she would bring him nothing. So he left, ashamed but still loving her. Now he stood before her ruined home. He did not ask questions. He did not look at the broken walls. He looked only at her face. He said he had heard she was alone again. He said he did not care why. He said he never gained anything when he loved her, except peace. The village watched from a distance, waiting, expecting him to rise, expecting luck to touch him. Nothing happened. No sudden change, no blessing, no reward. He stayed the same, poor, simple, honest. He brought her food and shared it equally. He fixed what he could with his own hands. He slept on the floor. He asked for nothing. Each day he remained. Each night he stayed. The whistle did not move. The air stayed calm. For the first time in years, she felt no fear, no shame, no hunger in the eyes beside her. Just presence, just choice. He loved her without profit, without witnesses, without gain. And for the first time, she understood what had been missing all along. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. With him by her side, she began to rebuild. Slowly, but with a steadiness she had never known. The village watched, curious but afraid to approach. She no longer hid from their eyes. She no longer feared what they might see. She had learned, finally, that true love was not something that could be stolen or bartered for. It was given, and it was quiet. Her life began to stabilize. The whistle remained in her hand, untouched, but no longer needed. The rules that had controlled her existence were forgotten. Love had found her in the simplest, most unexpected form. The man who had once walked away with nothing was now the one who helped her rebuild everything. They worked together, each task shared, each decision made between them. And with time, the village began to change too. They no longer saw her as the woman to fear, the woman who brought only loss. They saw her as a person, a woman, someone who had endured, not because of her power, but because of her patience, her heart. Slowly, they began to look at her differently. The whispers stopped. The laughter faded. They no longer spoke of her in fearful tones, but with respect. The man who loved her was never interested in what she could give. He didn't want to take from her. He wanted to be beside her, in whatever form she was. And in the end, that was all she had ever wanted, to be loved for who she truly was, not for the things she could offer. The whistle stayed hidden, buried beneath the earth in a small, quiet place that no one ever knew. It remained a part of her past, but it no longer defined her. The silence that had once kept her prisoner was now a part of her strength. She had found freedom in her own voice. She had learned that silence, when held too long, can drown you, but when it is chosen, it can bring peace. And so, her story ended not in revenge, not in power, but in love. A love that was simple, quiet, and true. The kind that didn't ask for anything in return, but gave everything in return. The village would never fully understand it, and she no longer cared. She had learned that sometimes the greatest power is to live without needing to prove anything to anyone. Her secret was no longer a burden. It had simply become a part of her. And the life she now lived, it was more than she could have ever imagined. Because in the end, the price was not her silence, but the freedom to choose who she wanted to be. After everything, life became small again. And that was enough. She woke up early. She cooked simple food. She worked beside the man who chose her when there was nothing to gain. They laughed quietly. They slept without fear. No one bowed. No one begged. No one whispered when she passed. The village slowly forgot the power. They remembered only the woman who stayed, the woman who endured, the woman who did not destroy them when she could have. Children grew up hearing her name spoken without laughter, without fear. Just as a name, just as a person. The house was rebuilt with mud and patience, not strong, but honest. Some days were hard, some nights were quiet and cold, but they were together. And no one took from her any more. No one used her path to rise above others. Her body was hers again. Her life was hers again. The whistle was never used again. It stayed buried where no sound could reach it. Power returned to the earth. Silence returned to being just silence. No longer a cage, no longer a weapon. People say that is how the legend ends, not with fire, not with riches, but with peace. They say some gifts are traps. They say some secrets eat the soul. And they say true love is the only thing that comes without a price. That is why elders still warn the young. Gain that comes too easily will take more than it gives. Silence kept for fear will rot the heart. And love that asks for nothing is the only thing that stays. This is how her story is told. Softly, simply, like a truth meant to be remembered.